In a dramatic turn of events, the Trump administration has announced plans to revoke federal approval for New York City's groundbreaking congestion pricing program, a decision that could reshape the city's traffic management and funding for public transit. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy conveyed this intention in a letter to Governor Kathy Hochul, asserting that the tolls imposed on drivers entering Manhattan are burdensome to working-class motorists and do not align with the original federal legislative framework for such initiatives. Congestion pricing, which commenced on January 5, charges drivers $9 to enter Manhattan below 60th Street, a move designed to alleviate traffic congestion, reduce pollution, and generate approximately $15 billion for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority (MTA). The program had shown early signs of success, with weekday traffic in the toll zone decreasing by 9% in February compared to the previous year. Supporters, including MTA Chair Janno Lieber, emphasized that the tolling scheme was already yielding benefits in terms of reduced gridlock and increased foot traffic in commercial areas. However, President Trump, fulfilling a campaign promise, expressed his intention to eliminate the tolls, claiming they deterred visitors and businesses from entering Manhattan. In a post on Truth Social, he declared congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. In response, Governor Hochul has vowed to challenge the administration's decision in court, stating, "We are a nation of laws, not ruled by a king." The MTA swiftly filed a lawsuit against the federal order, asserting that the program had already begun to address significant infrastructure issues, including upgrading aging subway systems and improving accessibility for disabled riders. Legal experts have pointed out that there is no precedent for federal officials to nullify a successful transportation initiative, raising questions about the legality of the administration's actions. Opposition to congestion pricing has come from various quarters, particularly from politicians in neighboring New Jersey, who argue that the tolls disproportionately affect their constituents. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has been a vocal opponent, labeling the toll a disaster for working and middle-class New Jersey commuters. Critics contend that the toll merely shifts traffic and pollution to other areas rather than resolving the root problems. In a climate where public transit advocacy groups are expressing outrage, Danny Pearlstein of Riders Alliance called the decision to dismantle congestion pricing one of the stupidest policy proposals we've seen. Many residents argue that the federal government should refrain from intervening in local matters, suggesting that local authorities are best positioned to determine transportation policies. As the legal battles unfold, the potential dismantling of the congestion pricing program raises serious concerns regarding the future of New York City's public transit funding. The MTA has indicated that without the toll revenue, the state would need to develop alternative strategies to generate the $1 billion annually required to sustain the transit system's capital plan. In the backdrop of this contentious scenario, Governor Hochul's commitment to defending the program underscores a broader struggle between state autonomy and federal authority in shaping urban policy. The implications of this conflict extend beyond just congestion pricing. They reflect the evolving dynamics of governance and the complexities involved in addressing urban challenges in an increasingly polarized political environment. As New Yorkers brace for the legal and political repercussions of this federal decision, the future of congestion pricing remains uncertain, with advocates pushing for its preservation as a vital tool for improving urban mobility and environmental sustainability. The outcome of this clash may well set precedents for how cities across the nation tackle similar issues, foreshadowing a significant moment in urban policy discourse. In a political landscape often marked by polarizing opinions and contentious debates, recent polling data has illuminated a troubling trend for the early actions of former President Donald Trump. According to a post-Ipsos poll published by The Washington Post, many of Trump's initial moves in office are proving unpopular among the American public. This sentiment poses significant implications for his administration as it seeks to navigate the complexities of governance and public sentiment. The poll results indicate that Trump's controversial decisions, including proposals for significant changes to federal governance and social policies, have not resonated well with a considerable segment of the population. In particular, his suggestion that federal authorities should take over the governance of Washington, D.C. has sparked debate. Critics argue that such a move undermines local self-governance and could set a precedent for federal overreach. As one political analyst noted, the notion that the federal government should exert more control over the nation's capital raises alarms about how we define democratic governance in a federal system. While supporters of Trump may view these early actions as bold and necessary for reform, the broader public reaction reflects a growing unease. Polling data reveals that only a slim majority of respondents approve of his handling of key issues, with many expressing concerns about his approach to governance and the implications for local autonomy. This disconnect between Trump's policy initiatives and public approval could have ramifications for his political capital as he attempts to rally support for his agenda. Moreover, the timing of these polling results is crucial. With the nation facing ongoing challenges ranging from economic recovery to social justice movements, public expectations for decisive and unifying leadership are at an all-time high. Trump's early actions, however, appear to diverge from these expectations, potentially alienating moderate voters who may be pivotal in upcoming elections. As one respondent in the poll stated, "I want to see solutions that bring us together, not divide us further." In light of these challenges, the Trump administration may need to recalibrate its strategy to regain favor with the electorate. Engaging with local leaders and addressing concerns about overreach could present opportunities for compromise and dialogue. Furthermore, transparency in decision-making processes could help bridge the gap between the administration's intentions and public perception. As we look ahead, the political landscape remains dynamic, and the future of Trump's administration will likely hinge on its ability to adapt to these public sentiments. The coming months will be critical as the administration seeks to implement its policies while managing the growing scrutiny from both supporters and detractors alike. Observers will be keenly watching how these early actions shape not only Trump's presidency but also the broader political discourse as the nation moves towards the next electoral cycle. In a rapidly evolving media landscape, significant shifts are taking place, reflecting changing dynamics in both entertainment and governance. From the glitz of the James Bond franchise to the serious implications of Inspector General dismissals, recent developments highlight the intersection of creative control, political accountability, and public interest. In a landmark decision, Amazon MGM Studios has acquired creative control over the iconic James Bond franchise from the Broccoli family, who have maintained stewardship of the series since its inception. This transition, formalized on February 20, 2025, marks a pivotal moment for the future of one of cinema's most enduring brands. Amazon's strategic move is anticipated to inject new life into the franchise, potentially expanding its reach through innovative storytelling and fresh marketing approaches. This acquisition allows us to explore new dimensions for Bond that resonate with contemporary audiences, said a spokesperson from Amazon Studios, emphasizing their commitment to honoring the legacy of the character while modernizing its appeal. Meanwhile, in the political arena, a group of former inspectors general recently discussed their abrupt dismissals during the Trump administration, shedding light on the challenges of maintaining accountability within government institutions. The discussions revealed a pattern of resistance against oversight, with former officials citing concerns over transparency and the integrity of investigations. "Our role was to serve the public interest, yet we found ourselves navigating a political minefield," one former inspector general remarked, highlighting the precarious balance between governance and political influence. This dialogue underscores the importance of oversight in fostering trust between governmental bodies and the citizens they serve. On a lighter yet equally compelling note, the peculiar case of individuals with the last name Null has emerged as a quirky reflection on the complexities of modern identity. Those bearing this unusual surname have reported a range of challenges, from bureaucratic mishaps to online miscommunication, illustrating how a name can inadvertently complicate everyday interactions. When your last name is Null, it often feels like nothing works as it should, one individual quipped, shedding humorous light on a serious issue of personal and digital identity in an increasingly automated world. As these narratives unfold, they reveal a broader trend of transformation across various sectors. In entertainment, the Bond franchise is poised for a renaissance under new ownership, while in governance, the discussions surrounding Inspector General dismissals serve as a crucial reminder of the need for accountability. The challenges faced by those with the last name Null highlight the often overlooked nuances of identity in a digital society. Looking ahead, these developments suggest a future ripe with both opportunity and challenges. Amazon's stewardship of Bond may lead to a reimagined cinematic experience, while the ongoing conversations about government accountability could inspire reforms aimed at enhancing transparency. As society grapples with these themes, the interplay of creativity, governance, and identity will undoubtedly continue to shape our collective narrative. In a significant diplomatic rift, the United States has voiced its opposition to labeling Russia as the aggressor in the ongoing conflict with Ukraine, a stance that threatens to undermine the unity typically exhibited by the G7 nations during their annual meetings. This disagreement arises on the eve of a virtual summit commemorating the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The implications of this shift in rhetoric are profound, potentially altering the landscape of international support for Ukraine amidst ongoing hostilities. According to officials familiar with the negotiations, U.S. representatives have pushed back against the use of the term Russian aggression, a phrase that has been a consistent part of G7 communiques since the onset of the conflict in 2022. The G7 typically issues a statement of solidarity on February 24, the date marking Russia's invasion, but this year's message remains uncertain. An official close to the discussions remarked, "We are adamant that there must be a distinction made between Russia and Ukraine. They are not the same." This sentiment reflects a broader shift under the Trump administration, which has increasingly sought to reframe the narrative around the conflict, calling it the Ukraine conflict rather than attributing sole blame to Russia. The political backdrop is further complicated by recent comments from President Donald Trump, who has publicly criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, referring to him as a dictator without elections. Trump's remarks and suggestions that Russia could be reintegrated into the G7 have raised alarms among European allies, who fear a potential pivot in U.S. foreign policy that could embolden Moscow. As one official noted, "The Americans are blocking that language, but we are still working on it and hopeful of an agreement." The ongoing talks were further strained by the cancellation of a press conference that was scheduled to follow a meeting between Zelensky and U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg, underscoring the growing diplomatic tensions. In parallel developments, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov recently called for the withdrawal of NATO forces from Eastern Europe, a demand that was met with resistance by U.S. officials during discussions in Riyadh. As Cristian Diaconescu, chief advisor for defense and national security to the Romanian president, highlighted, the Russian delegation failed to convince the Americans on this point. However, European leaders are increasingly concerned that the Trump administration may seek concessions to secure a peace deal, potentially at the expense of NATO's eastern flank. The ramifications of these diplomatic maneuvers extend beyond rhetoric. Companies like Renault are now contemplating their future in Russia as the war's dynamics shift. Renault CEO Luca de Meo stated, "I'd rather focus on building the future than catching up on the past, but we're business people. When we see a business opportunity, we'll try to grasp it." This statement reflects the uncertainty facing multinational corporations in the wake of geopolitical changes as they weigh the risks of re-entering a market that remains under heavy sanctions. As the situation evolves, the European stock markets have shown resilience, outperforming Wall Street since Trump's inauguration, bolstered by hopes for peace talks and delayed tariffs. With the Stoxx Europe 600 index gaining 5.2% since January 17. Analysts suggest that Europe's financial outlook could brighten if a resolution to the conflict is found. Nonetheless, apprehensions linger regarding the sustainability of this positive trend, particularly if the U.S. revisits its trade policies. Looking ahead, the geopolitical landscape remains precarious. As European leaders prepare for upcoming talks with their U.S. counterparts, the stakes are high. The potential for a divided response to Russian aggression could have lasting impacts on both regional security and international relations. The future of NATO, the stability of Ukraine, and the business interests of multinational corporations hang in the balance as the world watches closely how these tensions unfold. The outcome of this diplomatic struggle may well define the contours of international policy in the years to come, in the ever-evolving landscape of sports and politics. Few issues have garnered as much attention and controversy as the participation of transgender athletes in competitive sports. Recently, this topic has been thrust into the spotlight by former President Donald Trump, who specifically called out cyclist Austin Phillips, accusing her of undermining women's sports. In a powerful response, Phillips articulates her experience and challenges the narrative that seeks to vilify transgender athletes. In a recent executive order, Trump referred to Phillips as an example of a male cyclist posing as a woman, who he claimed dominated the women's category in the 800-mile Arizona trail race, surpassing the previous record by a staggering 5.5 hours. This assertion, while highlighting Phillips' impressive achievements, serves as a launching point for deeper discussions about inclusivity in sports. Phillips, however, counters that the event operates in a co-ed format, where traditional governing bodies do not impose strict gender categories, allowing for a more inclusive atmosphere. Despite the attention generated by her record-breaking feat, Phillips reflects on the lack of financial support and acknowledgement she has received in the cycling community compared to her male counterparts. "My fleeting record run was the talk of two niche cycling publications," she notes, lamenting that her achievements have been co-opted into political discourse without yielding tangible benefits for her or other women athletes. Phillips argues that the focus on transgender athletes distracts from the pressing issues facing women in sports today. The infrastructure supporting women's cycling has been crumbling, with prominent events like the Joe Martin stage race and the DNA Pro cycling team shutting down, leaving fewer opportunities for female athletes to advance their careers. "The conditions haven't been this dire in ages if you're a woman in the US trying to progress to the vaunted European peloton," Phillips asserts, emphasizing that the political rhetoric surrounding transgender participation overshadows the urgent need for investment and support for women athletes. Moreover, she criticizes Trump's executive order as a political maneuver devoid of real solutions for women in sports. Rather than addressing the systemic issues that inhibit female athletes, such as funding cuts and lack of sponsorship, the order perpetuates a culture war that ultimately harms all women in sports. "In this new reality, all women lose," Phillips states, making it clear that the focus should be on empowering female athletes rather than scapegoating transgender individuals. Looking forward, Phillips' response serves as a rallying cry for advocates of inclusivity in sports. The conversation must shift from divisive politics to constructive dialogue aimed at enhancing the conditions for all athletes regardless of gender identity. As the debate continues, it becomes increasingly vital for stakeholders in the sports community to recognize the shared challenges faced by women athletes and to unite in efforts to foster a more equitable environment in sports. The future of women's sports hinges on concerted efforts to invest in and uplift female athletes rather than allowing political narratives to dictate the terms of engagement. In recent months, the historic Haskell Indian Nations University has found itself at the center of a storm, grappling with significant administrative challenges, faculty unrest, and potential legislative changes that could alter its future. Carol A. Tomlinson, a retired biology professor and Haskell alumna, has voiced her concerns about the school's trajectory, shedding light on the struggles faced by its faculty and the implications of recent events. Haskell, established in Lawrence, Kansas, holds a unique place in the educational landscape for Native American students. However, Tomlinson argues that the institution has been unfairly maligned, particularly in light of a recent legislative proposal aimed at removing it from the oversight of the Bureau of Indian Education. This proposal, if enacted, could strip the university of critical federal protections and support, further complicating its already precarious situation. The backdrop of these concerns is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced faculty to transition to remote teaching without prior training. Tomlinson detailed her personal experience. noting that she had to invest her own resources to adapt her teaching methods for an online format. This challenging transition was compounded by the revelation that many faculty members were unaware of serious issues arising within the athletic department during the pandemic, which were later highlighted in congressional hearings. The perception that faculty were unresponsive to students' needs, particularly regarding harassment claims, has added to the institution's woes. The situation has grown increasingly dire, with the recent termination of nearly 40 permanent staff members, including faculty, raising alarms about the university's ability to maintain its accreditation and quality of education. Tomlinson emphasized that such cuts threaten not only the academic offerings but also the operational aspects essential for maintaining the campus and supporting students. She highlighted the risk this poses to Haskell's mission, stating, "Let us not in 2025 allow Haskell to be lost to our Lawrence community, as well as to young Native students across the country." As Haskell faces these challenges, the community's response is pivotal. Tomlinson's letter serves as a rallying cry for support, urging stakeholders to recognize the importance of the university as a bastion of education for Native American students. With a new diligent president at the helm, there is hope that the institution can navigate these turbulent waters, but the path forward remains uncertain. The fate of Haskell Indian Nations University will likely continue to unfold in the coming months as discussions around federal oversight and institutional restructuring progress. As the community rallies around this historic institution, the implications of these developments could reverberate far beyond Lawrence, affecting countless Native students who depend on Haskell for their educational journeys.